And I did this one show and I did pretty well. And then when I was leaving, this couple was like, "Hey, that was really funny. Like, you should keep doing that." And it was only my third time on stage. And literally, I still think about that couple, whoever they are, wherever they are. I'm like, you have set me on this weird life path just from that one
One
compliment of being
comment,
like, "That was
yeah.
pretty funny. You should keep doing that." And I was like, "All right, I
Yeah,
will."
I will. Thank you. I know. I know
Oh,
people don't
throw away
realize
this
the
diploma.
impact. Exactly. But that's the thing. People don't realize the impact
Mhm.
that that can have on someone. That could have just been the one little thing you needed to hear. You know. So
And just
that's
as
awesome.
it could have been just as bad too if someone had said something really negative to me. Who
Yes.
knows where
Yes.
that would have taken me down as well, right? Like,
Exactly.
I don't know.
Exactly.
Maybe I'd be making more money. Who knows?
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. This is season 4 of Shooting the Breeze. And this week, my guest is Johnny Rogers. Johnny is a comic now based out of Ottawa, formerly of Toronto, and he's the host of his own podcast called The Johnny Rogers Show. So, welcome to the show, Johnny.
Thanks for having me, Simone. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So, I've been a fan of yours for years because I used to watch you on different channels on YouTube. And I think it was when I was watching you when you worked on YouTube that you had mentioned that you were a comic. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. I see that. I see that. You know. So how did you like what came first, comedy or presenting on YouTube? And like how did
Oh,
you get
comedy.
into
Comedy's always there. Yeah. So I started comedy in 2000. It's coming up actually, February 2011.
okay.
um, was like when I did my first set. And then I was just like trying to find different ways that I could like bring in an audience really. Because that's always like your half of comedy is like working on your material and make sure your material is solid, but then the other half is like the business side of like you gotta create a fan base, like create people that will want to come see you do this material. Otherwise, you're just creating material for yourself, like and the odd random audience, like it. So I was always striving to do that, and then I ended up stumbling across. It's interesting. I found that YouTube presenting job when I was literally at like rock bottom, like
Oh
rock.
wow.
Like I had no job. I had just like I was just looking on different like LinkedIn and I was looking on all these different like job recruiting sites. And then I came across one that said YouTube host. And I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. And then I applied for it and I went in. I had like a bit of a shaky audition. Like it wasn't the greatest thing. I had never read off of a teleprompter before. So even that was like a new experience for me. And then, but I knew like being a comic, I was like, oh, I have some like public speaking skills. Like I had hosted weddings before that. I was like, I can be like presenting and not have to be like funny every 2 seconds. I know how to do that. And then it was just that they just gave me a chance. They were just like, I think that he can kind of grow into this role. So let's just give him a chance to do this. And then I ended up, over the course of 4 years, I went from hosting, I think it was like Top 10 Nerd and Top 10 Gaming. And then I was on Inform Overload. And then I became the manager of that channel until I just decided that I didn't really want to do that anymore. But it's always been comedy first for me.
Oh wow, that's great. That's interesting because I always wondered um how those jobs came to be and like how like where do you find them? Like how does that happen? So you found that position or the audition on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think it was actually like I'm trying to remember the name of it. I think it's called Indeed Jobs.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I just had searched like Indeed Jobs Toronto, and then this was just one of them that came up. Because it's funny when you go on LinkedIn, whatever your profile is, it always matches you first with jobs that match your profile. So I find if you're trying to look for jobs on LinkedIn, it's really hard to break out of your industry. So my whole LinkedIn profile at the time was like all serving jobs. So it was only giving me like serving positions. So I was like, let me
Uh
try a site that I don't have a profile on and just see what other jobs are actually out there. And you'd
mhm.
be surprised. Like even now, I'll occasionally look at like, you know, these sites and even specifically search like YouTube, for example, and there's countless positions up for like YouTube hosts for certain channels, or like they're looking for video editors. And I was really drawn, I think, to that because it's what I call like I've heard this term used before, but it's called a shadow career. So it's I want to be doing stand up, right? Like that's what the goal of the career is. But what I can do for the meantime to make money is a position that benefits stand up overall. If I'm learning like how to be presenting on YouTube and I'm building an audience and I'm getting paid for that, it's also assisting the main thing that I want to be striving for.
Right.
Which I recommend to any artist. Whatever job that you're getting, try to find some value in it for whatever your passion is. Like, how can this skill be a transfer to my actual passion?
Right. Right. No, that's very important. That's that's important, because I know with my I have a day job. I don't just do comedy as well, and I find that a lot of the skills that I've developed as a comic work well in my day job, like in terms of giving presentations or speaking to groups of people and getting people engaged. So yeah, that's very good advice. That's very good advice. And even though it sounds like web developer and comic sound like
Yeah,
apples and
yeah.
oranges, you can always find some common thread, or something something, a skill that you have well developed in one can most likely be used in the other. So
Yeah,
that's an important
1,000%.
thing. That's an
Especially
important thing
web
to keep in mind.
developer. You can have
Yeah.
a sick website with all your book, like for
Yeah, like
yourself.
I
I'm
could do
saying,
my
you
yeah,
know,
I could do my I
do
do
your own
my
website, no
website
problem.
myself. Yeah,
Or if
I
I
do
tried
it
to do that,
myself.
I'd be like, Simone, help.
Exactly.
I don't know what the fuck what's HTML?
Yeah, what the hell is that? Oh my goodness. So like I'm just curious about, I know you don't do the YouTube stuff anymore, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
No, I have
what
no problem talking about it.
Oh great. So what's like the audition process like?
So basically, the channel that I was auditioning for was like a top 10 channel. So they wanted to see your ability to write about any given topic. This one was specifically like nerd stuff. So they just said, you know, write a top 3 list of this super specific thing. I think it was like, and I had to actually do research because I like peripherally knew like comic book culture, but I wasn't like a big comic book kid. Like I didn't always want to have the comic books. And it goes deep, like nerd culture goes really deep. So they were like, write the top three versions of like the scariest symbiotes. And I was like, what the fuck is a symbiote? Like,
I
I'm
was
like,
about to
what?
say what?
What? What? So I Googled it and it's the creature, you know, Venom, like that,
Yeah, I've
the
heard of
like
that. Yeah.
evil Spider-Man kind of. The
Hmm.
symbiote was like this alien thing that took over the body, and that's what the symbiote is. And I was like, okay, cool. So I wrote that list and then just did the audition of you just literally read it off the teleprompter. Like it couldn't be easier, but they just wanted to see that you're like projecting and you're able to, if you mess up, you're able to just not get mad, just start back where you were and pick up from where you left off. And it really actually helped me with timing when it comes to videos for video editors. And I noticed that some people actually have this skill where you can like you say I fucked up this line and then I just pause and then start the sentence again instead of trying to. Some people will stumble on a line and then they'll just keep talking and try to get back into it, and that's a mess for a video editor to look
That's
at
what I do.
because
I'm getting better.
yeah, like they need that drop in audio so they can cut it and pick up right where they left off. And so that was like a huge thing that I didn't even realize was something that I was learning along the way. But yeah, the audition process was super simple. It was just a matter of, can you write about this and can you present it well? And then it did take me a long time to actually like get comfortable standing in front of this, because everything there was so fast. Like there was time slots, 15-minute time slots that you would book to film your video essentially, right? And if you were taking too long, you're running into the next person's time slot. So like if you're making mistakes, if you make too many mistakes, sometimes they just ask you to stop and just go rewrite it or something and come back to a different slot. Which is it's stressful when it comes to like creativity. Like you're feeling like you're kind of getting crunched down.
Wow. And that's kind of like comedy. You've got to keep it, whatever your time limit is, you got to
Mm-hmm.
stay within that, because you go over your time, you're encroaching on the other comic's time.
Yeah. Or you're making
And
the show run too long and then people start
right,
getting cranky. It's like,
exactly. They want
yeah.
to leave because it's
Yeah.
going too long. But I would think that the because I watched the shows that you were the Informer Overload, and that whole series of shows, and it seemed that it was very fast paced. And if something in the pop culture world was happening, you guys usually, like, because I watched you mainly, you'd have a within hours or the next day or something, you'd have a video
Stupid.
about it, or a
Stupid,
list or
Simone.
something like that. I was just like, holy
I,
cow.
uh, it wasn't my choice to be like that, but I understand.
Mhm.
I understand where they're coming from, where like
Yeah, the nature of
there's
the channel
so,
too.
yeah, it's an entertainment news channel, right? So you want to be on top of the story before anyone else got on top of the story, plain and simple. So like the Grammys are coming up, I think it's tonight actually, on
Yeah.
Sunday. And I'm getting PTSD just seeing the schedule because every single award show, whether it was on a Saturday, Sunday, it didn't matter. I didn't just work Monday to Friday. I worked
Yeah.
7 days a week. If something happened, I had to make a video about it or come up with
Right.
something, especially an award show where a lot of people are searching for the Grammys or what's happening at the
Hmm.
Grammys. So I would just have my phone off the side playing the Grammys, and I would just be waiting with a blank Word document in front of me, and I'd have my intro already written out, and then I would have like news articles up, and I would just be refreshing the pages, waiting for
Wow.
anything that looks like I could write a good title for it, make a good thumbnail for it, essentially. Because we always started with the title and the thumbnail, and then we'd work our way backwards. So
Right.
like Will Smith slaps Chris Rock at the
I was about to
Oscars.
ask you about that. Like,
Perfect title.
yeah.
You're like, holy shit, I can't believe that happened. And I would just write, and I would try to make it funny, but I would mostly try to make it short and informative.
Mhm.
Um, but like they really like streamlined the process. Like a lot of people think like, holy cow, how does like this one guy do? It's not just me. Like I would write the video, and then I have a whole home setup, right? So write the video. I have my own teleprompter. I'd throw it on the teleprompter, record it, and then send it off to an editor. And then while the editor is chopping it up in like record time, like these editors were scary fast. Like I saw someone edit something in like less than 30 minutes, which
Wow.
it didn't make sense. Like it was like they're using like hotkeys, and they're like all you hear is like
Wow.
clicking. It sounds like they're typing an essay because they're clicking on the keyboard so many
Oh my
times.
God.
It's
Wow.
crazy. But that's
Wow.
what happens when you edit so many videos every single day. They
Oh
edit
yeah, it
like
becomes,
hundreds
yeah.
upon hundreds of videos. So
Yeah.
yeah, it becomes like second nature. But it is rewarding in the sense that like you work really hard on something, you get it out, and you get to see the immediate reward for it. It's kind of like stand up in that way, where
Yeah.
you could write a joke today and say it on stage that same night and get that feedback immediately. So I did like that aspect of it.
Because I'm thinking that would have, like, helped your writing for stand up
It
to
didn't,
being
it
able.
didn't.
Really?
Yeah, so
Okay.
there were some like cons to it. So I was writing about very niche things, right? And they're not necessarily things that I care about or even care to talk about on stage. Um, and and a lot of it too is like I must have written like 3 novels in the time that I like. If I look back at like some of the top 10 lists that I wrote that were like 3,000, 4,000 words. And just like, and I did like 4 or 5 videos a day sometimes. over the course of 4 years. Like it's a lot. So it actually, I would feel drained most days, like having to now, okay, now go write again, but for yourself. You'd think it'd be easy, but you've just exhausted your brain for 8 hours typing
Right.
bullshit. and then and then you're trying to write something funny, and the creative juices are just gone,
Just
right?
gone. Okay. Because I
Yeah.
was thinking that maybe just the muscle of having to write stuff quickly. But yeah, that makes
Hmm.
sense that you, after churning out so many things, when it comes time to write stuff for comedy, you're exhausted, like
Yeah,
mentally and
yeah.
physically exhausted.
And the
Wow.
other thing that it did to me too, like that, going back to the talking about like needing to get things out so fast, is I started like talking really fast in my videos. Like I was like an auctioneer, just like selling this information, blah, 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 just so I could get back to my desk to write a new video and go do it again, right? Because I always wanted to have like the most amount of videos out. And I remember going to like an acting class with like Gloria Mann, who's like a good casting director, man casting in Toronto. And we were doing like, I was doing a commercial basically, and I was running through the commercial, and she kept saying to me, just slow down. She's like, you're talking way too fast. They're not, and in my head, I was like, this is just how I talk. Like, I don't, I just talk super fast. Like, I don't know what
And
you
then
want
when
me to
somebody
do.
points it out, you're like,
Yeah, you get all like insecure and paranoid. You're like, am I talking too fast? Am I talking too fast? Like
I'm not
all
talking too
over the
fast.
place. I'm not talking too fast. We should do this talking too fast. Like doing all these crazy movements. And then I would feel like stupid, like, okay, like I would slow it down way too much. And then I realized I'm like, it's this. It was the
Mm,
YouTube thing that kind of fucked up the way that I talk and my timing. It was just so much repetition of like needing
right.
to be the fastest. And it's so
Wow.
funny. People in the comments would always say that too. Like, God damn, I have to put this on like half speed to understand what he's saying. Like, and I would just respond to those people like, catch up. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know. I can't help you.
exactly. Be better. Like that. Listen
Mm,
harder or something.
turn up the volume. I don't know.
Right.
Turn on captions. Like,
Wow.
it's not a me problem. It's a you
It's a
problem.
you problem. This is all you. This is all
Yeah.
you.
Holy hell.
So, what was your first stand-up show like? Like where like how old were you? When did it happen? Where did it
That's it.
happen?
So so when I went to Durham College, I believe I was 18. Getting that right? Yeah, I was 18. Um, I think I had just turned 19 when I started comedy. And there was like, I got this flyer, and it had Sugar Sammy's face on it actually. And it was like, are you the funniest person on campus? And you had to make a video, like a funny video or whatever, which looking back, I wish I still had it, but it was brutal. It was really brutal. This funny video that it was just me like talking about something I found like to be really stupid. And I was just like kind of ranting about it. Like there was no punchlines, there was no setups, there was no premise. It was just me on a camera talking about something like really stupid. And I put that, believe it or not, on Facebook for people to vote on, which is even more crazy, right? So the whole thing was like, whoever gets the most likes on their post, you could have a chance to open for Sugar Sammy. And I think Ron Jossel was opening for him too. And I was
Wow,
like,
that's
crazy. And it was
that's
like,
yeah.
it was at like a theater. It was at a theater. Can you imagine my
Wow.
first, if my first time was opening for them in a theater, that would be a disaster,
Oh my
because
God.
nothing else would compare to that. Like I don't
No,
think
exactly.
I haven't done anything that cool to date, and I've been
That's
doing
like
it
winning the
11 years.
Stanley Cup in your rookie year. Like you
Yeah, yeah. You're like minor league hockey and you win the Stanley Cup. Or you get to even play at the Stanley Cup would be
right.
crazy, right? You're like, what am I doing here?
You're sitting on the bench, you're like, this is so cool.
But that young in, when you don't know anything, you're just like, yeah, that makes sense. Like that's, yeah, sure. That's what, yeah, I had no problem doing it. So I went around like, and I actually, because moving to Oshawa, I didn't know anyone there. I didn't have really any friends. And so I was like, oh, this is actually a cool way to meet people. I started like a politician. I was just going door to door in my dorm room, knocking on the door, being like, hey, my name is Johnny. Like, I'm in this competition. Like, I'd really appreciate it if you just go on this Facebook page and just like it. I really want to do this. What?
Wow.
And some people were like, all right, cool. Like, whatever. Like, you want to hang out later? Like,
Yeah.
They were just shocked that this dude was just kind of knocking on their door. But I ended up coming second or something because the guy that came first, he stood, he's so smart. He stood in front of the pub and he handed people like little cards that had like a QR code where you scan it and it would
Oh,
take you right to his post. And I was like,
that's
fuck, I wish I thought of
brilliant.
that. Like, I'm just going in my dorm. Like, this guy's standing out in front of the pub. Like, he's getting people coming in and out. I was brilliant, right? Um, and then, but I reached out to the organizer and I was like, I still really want to try a comedy. And so he was like, he was like, well, have you done anything before? Like, do you have a joke that you can tell me? And I told him the joke, and then there's just silence on the other end of the phone. And he goes, well, sometimes you just gotta jump in the deep end with the shark. So why don't we just give you a chance? I was like, okay, so don't use that joke. Got it.
He said
It
that in
was
the
the
kindest
silence.
possible way.
Yeah. Sometimes you just gotta let you jump into the deep end. And I was like, all right. So he put me on. I think the bar at the time was called the Thirsty Monk, and I had a whole page just filled with notes of just random ideas and stuff that I thought were jokes. And I had that even beside me on the stool, which is like a big no-no for any show unless it's a straight open mic. And there was like, it was such a weird room. It was one of those rooms where, like, say this is the stage where I am. There's only like the wall. There was a wall like 2 feet in front of me, and I was playing down the bar to people sitting at the bar.
Oh,
There was like a couple people in front of me, and then most people were all down this narrow like bar.
that's so
It was so
strange.
weird. So I'd have to talk to them and then turn down this way and try to talk to the people over there, and it was so strange. And the host was like, the headliner canceled, he couldn't make it, so just do as much time as you want to do.
Oh my
So my
God.
first set ever, I think I did like 10 minutes of
Wow.
just me
That's huge for
talking
your
into a
first
microphone.
time.
Yeah, but it was all nonsense, right? It was just me talking into a microphone. Like, I think I might have even like run out of jokes and did like a Dane Cook bit just to try to get a laugh. Like, I definitely just like copped a Dane Cook bit and just was like, I just need a laugh, like I just need fucking something to get
Were
these.
they reacting to you or no? Like,
Oh, I did a bit about like how I think the Toronto Maple Leafs need to change their logo, and I was like, it's just a leaf, like that's not very intimidating against all of the other teams. Um, and I was like, you got like the Florida Panthers, and you got all these like really like intimidating teams. And this old guy at the bar, he had like an oxygen tank next to him, and he like popped his oxygen out of his nose, and he's like, he started yelling Leaf stats at me. He's like, they're actually doing pretty good this year, bud. Like, I
because
was
I was
like,
about to say, don't fuck with the Leafs. Like, people are passionate. If he popped out his oxygen
he was like,
to tell
hold
you
on a
something,
second.
yeah, that's the equivalent of like pulling your earrings off.
I was like,
Pop out the oxygen.
the fuck? I was like, that man has been I think I got a laugh when I was like, that man has been at that bar since this place opened. And the place had been around since like, 1892 or something. And that got a little chuckle, but like, I was so thrown off by like, I had everything in that set. I had like a headliner cancel. I had a heckler. I had
The
a
weird setup of the room.
weird setup. Like, it was awful.
Oh
I
my
remember being
God.
like, that was really bad. Like, I was like, I really didn't like
I
that, but
did
I
not
was
enjoy
still
that.
so obsessed with it. And it was like the third show that I did at this other little club that was like down the street. This is all in Oshawa too. It was so random that they were right when I started comedy, they had started the Durham Region Comedy Festival. So it was like all of a sudden all these shows were able for you to get onto. And they were taking anybody. And I did this one show and I did pretty well. And then when I was leaving, this couple was like, hey, that was really funny. Like, you should keep doing that. And it was only my third time on stage. And literally, I still think about that couple, whoever they are, wherever they are. I'm like, you have set me on this weird life path just from that one
One
compliment of being
comment.
like, that was
Yeah.
pretty funny. You should keep doing that. And I was like, all right, I
Yeah,
will.
I will. Thank you. I know. I know
Oh,
people don't
throw away
realize
this
the
diploma.
impact. Exactly. But that's the thing. People don't realize the impact
Mhm.
that 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 can have on someone, that could have just been the one little thing you needed to hear, you know? So
And just
that's
as
awesome.
it could have been just as bad too if someone had said something really negative to me. Who
Yes.
knows where
Yes.
that would have taken me down as well, right? Like,
Exactly.
I don't know. Maybe
Exactly.
I'd be making more money. Who knows?
So um how was the lockdown for you in terms of like work, like the work you were doing at the time and
Yeah,
comedy? What was that like?
definitely like perspective shifting for sure. I think leading up to the lockdown, comedy was like burning me out a little bit because I had been doing it for 9 years, and I'm not like I feel like I'm just on the verge of like getting something. I'd been doing like I'd opened for Kenny versus Spenny, and then I had like done like I had just gone to LA and I had just done shows in Chicago, and I was like, okay, cool. Like I'm actually like getting out there. Like I'm getting some traction, and people are kind of fucking with it, and I'm getting on shows in Toronto, and I'm getting in at the clubs. This is so cool. And then just everything just
Yeah,
shuts down. I was like,
literally.
well, fuck. And then work, right? I'm like I was also working as like a server too, and then that like got
Hmm.
canned, and I was like, so I lost like a whole stream of income, and I was only working at YouTube part-time then. And I said to my boss, I was like, we need to, it was really just for to save myself, but I said to him, I was like, everyone's going to be home right now. YouTube numbers are going to go through the roof because everyone's just going to be watching shit
Yeah.
to pass the time until
Yeah.
they feel like, even if it is for 2 weeks, like we need to still keep working. Like we can't stop. And I said, I was like Googling because I couldn't leave the house, right? Like it was at that point of the lockdown where it was like nobody's allowed to go
Hmm.
anywhere. And so I Googled like how to make a teleprompter for free. And I eventually found like a method, and I got like I had a pizza box in my recycling, and I cut a hole in the pizza box. I took a glass out of a picture frame and I taped it in, and I colored the inside all black. And then I put my camera on a tripod through the other side, and I just built a teleprompter out of a pizza box and
Wow.
like a picture frame. And then I did like a test with it. I think I took because I had a very small apartment. It was like it was a one bedroom, but it was basically a studio. Like
Okay.
the only thing separating the living room from the bedroom was like a step down into the
Okay.
bedroom. So
Okay.
I took the bed and I just threw it in my living room, and I turned that whole bedroom into like a studio essentially. Like I had a green screen on the wall and everything. And then I sent him this sample video, and I was like, I can do these videos still from here. Like I don't need to be in the big fancy studio
Right.
where we're not allowed to go anyways because of lockdown, and you're
Right.
going to get fined. Like it was at that point where if you were seen in these places, like someone could fine you, like
Yeah.
you get a
Hefty.
big fine,
Yeah.
hefty fine. And so he was like, okay, cool. Like, write out how you did everything. We'll send it to the other hosts and we'll start filming from home. And then everyone kind of like had their own method of how they were doing it. But that really saved my ass. So I was able to keep working through the pandemic. And then he eventually gave me like full time hours. And then I became a manager later on because of this, input that I did for the
Hmm.
company.
That's
And
huge.
then
That was huge. That
it was
you
just
did.
like
Yeah.
trying to save myself.
Yeah.
It's like amazing what you're able to come up with when you're in that kind of survivor mentality where it's just like, I got to do this, or I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I really don't.
Yeah.
And it's Toronto rent, so it's not cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
I was
Exactly. I
like, I
lived
got
there
to
for a
make
long
this
time.
fucking
Yeah.
money.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. God.
Um, and then I kept thinking, like, what's a way that I can still be creative? I didn't really want to do those like Zoom shows. I went to a couple of them, and I was like, I just personally can't do this. And I saw people making like TikTok sketches, and I was like, nah, I don't think I can do that either. Like, there's just a part of me that's just like, it's just not for me. Like
Hmm.
everyone's like, oh, it's so easy. I'm like, it's just not for me. I
Yeah,
just
just
don't feel
not for
like doing
you.
it.
Yeah.
And then I started like I was listening to different like artists on YouTube and like instrumental tracks while I was writing. And I noticed while I was writing, I was like kind of murmuring my own lyrics, if that makes sense, to whatever the song was as I was typing. And then I was like, why don't I like try to make a song? Like if the world is gonna end, let me try this other thing that I've never done before. And then I became obsessed, and I became so obsessed that I made a new like hip hop song every single day. That was just like I would
Wow.
every day, even while I was working, I would like pretend to be working and then cut away and work on I would like edit the beat a little more and like and then go back to work. And I was like going back and forth like that because I couldn't leave it alone. It felt like a drug obsession. And then I eventually like made that album at the end of 2 years, like
That's
of
so
just
cool.
needing to do something to keep my mind busy. And the real reason why I stuck with it was because I got the same feeling writing and producing the music that I did when I started comedy. That obsession, that like that amazing feeling when you produce something finally and then getting to see the results of it. So I was like, I can't ignore that feeling. Like that feeling has never let me down before, and I
Yeah.
have to just like
Yeah.
keep going at that. And still, when I listen back to like some of the songs that I made, I was like, man, you can really hear like what I was going through in that time. Like it was really me just trying to express myself
Right.
in any creative way that I could.
Wow. Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's like a time capsule of that
Yeah, those
period.
2 years, like from
Yeah.
2020 to 2022, like that's what my life was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. That's so cool. So we've performed together, not often, but a handful of times. Like how is is do you find a huge difference between the like the comedy scene in Toronto versus Ottawa? Like has it been a difficult or smooth transition
It's
for you?
everyone here is very nice, like very welcoming, very like, at least from my experience. um it feels, I think it's because there's so few comedians. Like it might feel like there's a lot of comedians, but compared to Toronto or NYC or LA, it's very few, and that's a good thing actually, because it makes you like a tighter of a community. Everyone's kind of got each other's backs, and it doesn't feel clicky yet. I'm sure it'll eventually happen once more people start doing comedy. That just happens, right? Like
Right.
in Toronto, I noticed it was always like whatever club people would try to do as many clubs as they could, but groups of pockets of people had their favorites, right? Like you had the comedy bar crew. There's like
Mm.
always a group of comics that was always doing shows there. Then you had like the underground where Puff Mama hosted like the Weed Lounge. That was like its own kind of little crew. And then there was the Corner Comedy Club, and then Yuck Yucks and Absolute. It was all these little like pockets. And then there was like the super indie like people that were doing bar shows or cafe shows wherever they could. And then little subsects of groups in there. But yeah, I mean, I always say it was clicky, and people think that like, oh, everyone must be really mean. That's not true at all. Like everyone is really great there also. And super welcoming as well too, wherever you go, right? Because I think at the end of the day, both scenes just respect funny. Like if you're funny, then yeah, you're one
Yeah,
of us. And if you're
exactly.
not funny, there's still like a willingness to
Yeah,
kind of help you get there, right?
exactly, exactly. Like
I don't know. I feel like, because I always feel bad just going to a mic, going to an open mic and not doing new material. Like it feels like you're cheating, you know?
if you go to an open mic and
If you go to
do
an open mic and you do like your club set that
okay.
works 100%. Like if you're not going to, I'm not going to just go to an open mic unless I have something that I need to work on, you
Mm.
know? So it's like if I haven't written a new bit or even like a new extension to an old bit that I know works, or if I want to try something, I'll kind of just go like, well, there's no point in me going to the open mic. It's just going to be a waste of my time. And
Mm.
people are like, oh, well, it's repetition, and you'll get better. It's like, I'm fine. Like I don't need to go to an open mic to practice like being on a microphone, because I talk all the time. Like
Right,
I
right.
am constantly like writing jokes, and then when I get those like longer sets, like at the Pints and Punchlines, that's perfect, because that's a perfect, having 10 or 12 minutes to me is worth more in terms of like crafting something and working on something than going to an open mic and trying to squeeze everything into like 5 minutes that I want to work on. And
Right.
then if the whole thing's not funny, then I just feel like shit.
Yeah.
And I've wasted my night and I feel like shit.
Yeah.
It's like I know how to be a comic on stage. Like I don't need to
Mhm.
work on the stage performance, but some
Right.
people don't like that opinion. Like you
Because
have to.
I feel similar, because sometimes it's not so much the material that you need to practice, it's if you're doing a longer set. Like, let's say
Mm-hmm.
now you've graduated to where you used to do 5 and 6 minute sets. Now you've been asked to do an 8 minute set or a 10 minute set. You want to practice that,
Yeah.
because now you've got to put together your bits to fill out this new time slot, this new time
Mm-hmm.
frame, and you want to know if it works.
Yeah,
Not
yeah, yeah.
necessarily if like, hopefully the jokes all work. You want that too, but does this group of jokes that I hope is 8 minutes, is it 8 minutes and does it work? Or is it 10 minutes? Does that work? It's more for the
Yeah.
time
The
period, I
timing
find.
is a good
Yeah.
thing too. Like as long as there's an intention going into it.
Yeah.
Like I'll never forget though, Ari Shafir talking about when he was like an assistant to Mitzi Shore at the Comedy
Mm-hmm.
Store. Do you know who Mitzi is?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so he was doing like as many mics as he could in LA. He was going to every like shitty open mic, every good open mic, like trying to get on book shows. And I think he had like a bad set at the Comedy Store, and he was making the comics laugh, and she was like, you need to stop making the comedians laugh. She's like, you stop going to open mics. She's like, it's giving you bad habits. And he's like, well, if I don't go to open mics, how am I supposed to get on shows? She goes, I don't know, figure it out. And he was just like, all right. I mean, she's fucking Mitzi Shore. Like she's bred some of the greatest comedians of our time. So she must know something. So he stopped going to open mics and he only started going, just showing up even to book shows. And then eventually he started getting on book shows. And that was where he could kind of find there's an actual audience that he
Yeah.
can perform these bits to. And it doesn't matter if they're new or not. You treat that like your open mic. The only time that you should be like fire on your game is if you're doing like a gala taping, or if you're doing, a club where they need that 7 minutes to be super tight.
Yes.
That makes sense, right?
Yes.
But sometimes the open mic scene can provide bad habits if you're not careful. If you're not like going in
True.
there with intention, and you're allowing the environment to dictate your material.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Is it is
And it's
like, what
okay
kind of
if
crowd
that's
is that? Yeah, if it's just comics, that's, yeah,
if
like,
you
because
want
I
to
know
just
I've,
hang with comics,
yeah,
perfect
for
place to
sure.
go.
For
Like
sure.
I've had great
Exactly.
times at open
Oh, me
mics. Like
too.
because sometimes it's fun to also just hang around with comedians and talk
Hmm.
about comedy, like because
Right.
you're all there, you're all interested in that too. So I get
Exactly.
that benefit of it as well, right?
Yes.
Like and that helps with even booking. Like
For
you'll
sure.
notice that like a lot of people, they book people who they see.
Hmm.
It's not like someone who just comes to mind or someone they think is good.
Right.
They'll just like, oh, I saw them last week at this show, let me book them on
Exactly.
this other show.
Exactly. And like,
Yeah.
part of the process of, especially like when you're new, whether, when I say you're new, not necessarily new to comedy, but say new to a community, that's how you meet people. Like, you have to go to the shows and you meet, you know, whether, like, I know there's shows that before they consider booking you, they want to meet you first,
Mm-hmm.
talk to you a little bit, get to know
And
you
make
a
sure you're
bit,
not
and then
crazy.
make sure you're not a nutcase. Exactly. Make sure you're not crazy,
I'm just
you
not going to
know?
accept any random person off the
Yeah,
internet. Yeah.
exactly. Or if somebody, depending on,
Yeah.
like, say you're going from one market to another market, whether a permanent move, or you're going to just to visit, like to go do shows, like if people
Mm-hmm.
can vouch for you and say, oh yeah, no, I know him, he's really funny and he's good to work with, whatever, that goes a long way
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got lucky with the Montreal scene because a lot of people that live in Montreal now I had done shows with in Toronto. So when it came
Mhm.
to like getting shows, I had lots of people vouching for me because they had
Yeah.
already seen me in Toronto. So they were like, oh, yeah, he's fine. Yeah. Put him on
Yeah.
your shows. Like,
Yeah.
you don't need to vet him through a process. It's going to be
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah, that's happened with me. Like, when I went to Toronto for a week back in May.
Nice.
And I know I had put a thing on in the Toronto community saying, "Hey, I'm an Ottawa-based comic, and I'll be here from here to here. Are there any shows?" And like a whole bunch of people vouched
I
for
wish
me.
I had done that when I moved to Ottawa. Like written in the Ottawa comedy. I didn't even like introduce myself. I think like when I first moved here, I just showed up to a random show and just was like, nobody knew who I was. And I was like, okay,
Okay.
cool. This is perfect. Let me just go hide in the corner and
Just
just
watch.
observe this scene from afar. And I was like, man, this is really good. I was like, I've
Yeah.
never heard of any of these people, but they're all great. Like they're all
Yeah.
good comedians. So
Yeah,
yeah.
because the community itself is because I've seen it happen so many times. Like say comics from another city are coming to Ottawa for a couple of days or whatever, or people who are just starting comedy or you know trying to get their feelers. There's always someone who's going to jump in and say, "Oh, hey, you could check out this or talk to that person or show up here."
Mm-hmm.
Like there's always somebody or always a few people who are willing to help and like at least steer you in the right direction.
You and Wafik have been that for me coming into this scene. Like
Oh.
just saying, I guess, nice. I just hear about it peripherally, like, oh yeah, we were just talking about you, or Wafik said, or Simone said that you were good. And I was like, amazing. Because I am terrible at that aspect of the business of like introducing myself to people or asking, how do I get booked on this? Like in my head, I'm like, you should know how to do this. You just reach out and you get on, and then I'm terrible at booking myself. I feel
Because
like I need
it's
a
not
booking manager.
easy. It's not really easy. And I know um like I remember what it was like for me when I first came in. You don't know anybody and you don't know where to start. You don't, and so I would just ask, and like some people ignored me. They were probably like, who the fuck is this? I don't know
Yeah,
who this
yeah,
person is. And other people were like, if I was like, oh, how do I get onto X, Y, and Z?
yeah.
And you know, most people were like super nice. They'd be like, well, that show is for, pro-am, and that means this, that, the other. So since you're new, you might not be ready for that. Like that'll be something that they'll invite you to it when
Mm.
once they get to know you and you have a little more experience, and like this show is for this show is for that, these shows run on these days, sort of thing. So and like Wafik was that for me, that like just that sort of guidance or just the encouragement, because it is scary, it is intimidating when you go to. I remember the first time I went to Swizzles. It was like my first, yeah, it was like my first time that I had in the community had put like spot, and I
Yeah.
got selected. And I was like, wow, oh my God, oh my
Yeah.
God,
What do I do?
and then going there and not knowing anybody and just being a little, just being intimidated but excited. And, everyone was like so nice to me. And so like I have fond memories of that,
Mhm.
and like
I have a
yeah.
good and bad memory from Swizzles.
I think everybody
So
does.
I think it was like nothing to actually do with Swizzles, which is funny. But I think it was like 2015, maybe, maybe 20, I don't know, somewhere in that range, 2015, 2017. I drove down I was coming home for like Christmas or whatever. So I drove down from Toronto, and then I was like, oh, let me try to do a spot while I'm in town in Ottawa. It's only like an hour away from Brockville. And so I drive up and I like do the spot at Swizzles and like have a great time, and everyone's like super nice. And I had parked my car in a parking garage nearby. And after the set, I come out and the door is locked. The car is just locked in
Oh
this parking
no.
garage. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, how am I going to get home?
I
Like,
need
where am
my
I going to
car. Oh
sleep?
no.
Like, I need a fucking car. And it was like, garage doesn't open until like 5 a.m. the next day or something. And I was like, are you kidding me? So I had to like get a hotel and everything and like
Oh my
stay the
God.
night and then go back in the morning to the garage and like get the car out. And I was like, that was for a 5 minute spot.
Yeah.
What the
Unpaid. An
fuck?
unpaid spot.
Paid for a
Oh
goddamn
my
hotel in
God.
Ottawa for a 5 minute spot.
Oh my
That happened to me another
God.
time too. At like I guess I parked in a parking spot in Toronto that you were not supposed to park in,
Oh
and
no.
I went into the SoCap theater. I did my 5 minute spot, and I came out, and I went to click the keys, and the car was gone. And I was like, "Where's the car?" where's the car? And then I like called a tow truck company and they're like, yeah, we towed you. Like it's in Scarborough now. I was like, it's in Scarborough?
Oh,
Why would you take it to Scarborough?
no.
And then I called an Uber and the Uber comes and I get in the Uber and he's like, oh, by the way, I'm like partially blind and deaf. And I was like, how is this my day right now? He goes, but don't worry, I'm a good driver. I was like, all right, I
I
trust
hope
you.
so.
I hope so. Fuck. You're a goddamn Uber driver. Shit. Yeah, I've had some wild, like, just comedy experiences. I call that spot like the $500 5-minute spot because it was like I had to pay a
Exactly.
tow truck fee, and then they make you pay to unimpound your car, and like
Yes.
your parking ticket that you had on top of that. I was like,
Exactly.
oh, fuck, the
Exactly.
most expensive spot I've ever
I
had.
know. So I was going to ask you like what your worst experience was, but I think the $500
Yeah, that was
5-minute.
definitely the worst.
What was one of the best? Like what would so you're the best so far?
The best like stand up
Um
experience.
just it could be like your best set or just the best thing that happened to you in the realm of stand up. So whether it was
Oh,
meeting someone, performing, having a great set, anything.
yeah. I met Russell Peters. That was cool.
Oh wow.
That was really, really cool. He was just like, I was just literally walking down the street, and I think it was in the middle of TIFF, and I look over, and he's just coming out of a hotel, and I was like,
Ah.
nobody's saying anything. I was like, that's fucking Russell Peters right there, like peak Russell Peters. And so I just like kind of ran over, and I was like, you're part of the reason why I started comedy. And just started like unloading, like fangirling. And he was kind of just like, all right, cool. Thanks, man. That was cool. I was like getting to meet him. Um, Show experience wise, it I opened for Letterkenny when they were doing like a tour, and it was in Ottawa at the like it's like that pavilion that's near like Lansdowne Stadium.
Oh yeah, okay.
So a charity had like rent their opportunity. They had rented out that whole thing, and they had a whole like comedy night. They were doing like an auction as well too. And then I got to open for them, and I was the only comedian. So it was just me like coming out. They brought me out on stage, and then I came out, and then I did like a set. I think I did like 15 minutes or 20 minutes or something, and then I brought them out to do like their kind of shtick or whatever. And it was cool because like it wasn't a typical comedy setting. Like people, it was huge ceilings. Like there was people like kind of scattered everywhere. But then as I started like telling jokes, I'd see a couple of people turn from the bar and start laughing, and then more people started making their way over. And by the time that I was done my set, I had this like group of people that were
Wow.
sitting down, like they came over to the seats to watch it, and that was really cool. But before that, even I like, man, shout out to Howard Wagman from Yuck Yucks, because at the old location, I told him like, hey, I'm gonna be in Ottawa. I'm gonna be opening for Letterkenny. If I can get a spot on like your Friday show or something to warm up for it, I'll give you like 2 tickets to the Letterkenny show to just give away as like a prize. And he was like, yeah, 1,000%. And that night, Mike McDonald ended up like coming into the club. And so I was like hanging out in the back room with Mike McDonald, and Darren Frost was the headliner. I just sat back and I
That's
just watched
amazing.
these two pros just like talk to each other and catch up, and like, and then when Darren was doing his set, it was just me and Mike, and we were just like talking about comedy and talking about like he just went to LA and did Mark Maron's podcast. We were talking about that, and like we were kind of like shitting on bad jokes, and like you know what I mean. Like it was just like a funny kind of like
Yeah.
razzing, and it was really cool that I got to have that moment with him, and then getting to do a set on stage with him there too was just like such a surreal weekend that I still think about that, where I'm just like, man, how lucky was I to get to do
That is
that.
so cool. That is so cool.
Yeah.
That's
R.I.P.
incredible.
Mike.
Yeah, yeah. That's wow, that's incredible.
He was amazing. Like he
Yeah.
was just next level comedian. Unreal.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of his. Yeah, he was incredible. that is very, very cool. So would you like to partake in my section I just called silly questions?
Yeah, let's do it. You said I pick a number?
Yeah, you can pick. We could do like maybe 3 questions. So you just pick a
Sure.
number between 1 and actually it's 249. I've deleted a
249.
question. I have not replaced it yet. So
All right,
between 1
let's
and 245 and 249, and
okay.
I'll read the corresponding question to you.
Let's do 91.
91. Okay. Would you rather be forced to dance every time you heard music or forced to sing along to any song you heard?
Oh, forced to dance anytime. Because
It's
nobody gets mad at someone dancing. Everyone gets mad at someone
so
just
sing.
belting out singing,
It's
right?
true.
If you don't have a great singing voice, even if you do have a great singing voice, people are visibly annoyed.
It's true.
But if you're
But
just
people
like kind of
dancing,
shimmying and dancing, they're like, yeah, and they kind of do it too, you know?
it's
Like
true.
dancing is such a human thing that I think dancing all day.
Yeah,
I remember I
same.
was doing like background acting and we were like lining up to go into this like next room or whatever. And there was this girl a couple things ahead and she was doing that thing where she's kind of like singing to herself. And then
Oh.
someone's like, oh, you're such a great singer. And she's like, oh, you heard me? Oh, like she was trying to do that. I'm like, yeah,
Oh,
we all heard
we
you.
all
You're
heard
just
you.
singing. What? Like, what kind of psycho move is that?
It's
That's psychotic. I was like, God damn. It just starts, oh, you heard me singing? Oh, stop.
however did you do that?
Yeah.
How did you hear me? It's because
I don't know. I have
you
fucking
just burst into
ears.
song. Yeah, I have ears and you burst into song.
You're just singing while we're all just talking. Fuck. Yeah.
That's
So dancing
insane.
all day.
Yeah, same here, dancing. That's insane. Oh
Yeah.
my
Yeah. It's insane
God.
behavior. Let's do 18.
18. Okay. If you were the CEO of a company, name one thing you would make compulsory in the office and one thing you would ban in the office.
Ooh. I would let's start with bands.
Okay. Singing.
I would I would ban meetings over 20 minutes. I think they're a tremendous waste of productivity and time.
They are. Most meetings are.
Most meetings,
Most,
it's just people ideating and it's just
yes.
people talking and catching up. And it's like, you're kind of cutting into the shit that I have to get
Yeah,
done within this 8 hour time frame here.
exactly. Could have
Let's
been an
just get
email.
in, get what's done, tell me what to do next, and then let's get out. Like, that's all a
Exactly.
meeting should be for. Make compulsory. Um, ooh, I would make it. Trying to think like, oh, 1 hour lunches. You have to take a 1 hour lunch. I don't care how much work you have to have done. You
Yeah.
have to take an hour break from whatever
Yes.
you're doing and just fucking chill
Yeah. Do some. It
and
doesn't.
eat something.
Yeah. You should
You shouldn't
eat
be checking
something.
your phone while you're
Yeah.
eating. Just focus on the meal.
Yeah. And like leave. Like
Mm-hmm.
go
Yeah,
somewhere
yeah.
else.
Go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
away
Don't just
from
eat
your
at your
desk.
desk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Away
yeah,
from your desk and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
that's good because too many people. I'm guilty of it too. Mainly when I was in the office of
Mm-hmm.
just, yeah, I took lunch, but no, you didn't because you're eating
Yeah.
over and you're not.
When I
You
worked
need.
for Inform Overload, I would do that. I had a half an hour lunch and I would go down to this little cafe down the street, get a sandwich, come back, and I would eat it at my desk while I was typing what the next story was going to be that I was going to
Mm,
work on as soon as I was finished. It like never stopped. I was just
yeah.
like eating and then like searching with my mouse, like trying to find stuff.
Yeah.
Not good.
No, no, because you're not focusing on either. Like you're
No.
just
Yeah,
eating
yeah,
blindly
yeah.
and you're not really focused on
Yeah.
the task at hand. Yeah, no, that's a good thing to make compulsory. Like, yeah, get the hell away from your desk for a little bit. Okay, let's do
And
one
then
more.
10.
10. Which animal would make the best type of president if the animal kingdom ever rises up and takes over?
Oh man. The best type of president. See, part of me wants to say like a chimpanzee or something, just because it's like a human bias, like they're
Yeah.
close enough of a relative that I'm like, I think a chimp could get the job done. But I actually, if I'm really thinking about it, I think it needs to be like a fucking octopus or something that's like in one of those Futurama like glasses that they have wires attached to where it's on a body and the octopus can just kind of control the body and speak through like this, this future thing that translates what it's saying. Because I feel like there's a lot of fish that we take for granted that are hella smart, that are insanely smart and could probably do a better job of running any country than any human could. And we're just not, they just don't have thumbs. They just don't have any way to breathe oxygen and get out here. Otherwise, they'd be taking
They'd be
over.
taking over.
We'd be fucked.
That's an interesting take because I never heard that one before. Because I've heard like a lion or
Oh,
you know
okay. No, I want someone
monkeys.
intelligent running things. A
Exactly.
lion's gonna be like, kill that guy.
Kill, just kill,
Just kill everybody.
Well, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. This was so much fun. Where can people find you? Where can people meet you? Not meet you, but where can people
You
find
can
you?
meet me if you
They
want.
can meet you. So
I'll be
where
in
can people
Ottawa.
find you on social
Just
media
give out
and
my address, just dox myself.
exactly.
No, you can follow me on all social media at the Johnny Rogers. There's no D in Rogers, it's Rogers, like the phone company. I have a podcast called The Johnny Rogers Show that comes out every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So check that out. It's on YouTube and wherever else you listen to podcasts.
Awesome. Awesome. So I will put that information
Hell yeah.
in the show notes for this episode. And again, thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you.
And thank you for watching and see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.